Hello and welcome to Circulate by CDA with me, Stuart Aldis. In this episode today, we're going to be talking about SEO. Piece of jargon there for you. It stands for Search Engine Optimization, or as I prefer to call it, and people here at CDA prefer to call it, making Google happy. Now that doesn't mean I'm completely ignoring other search engines like Bing and Yahoo, but I'm going to focus today on the main search engine, which of course is Google, and it's the world's number one, and that's what we're going to focus on today. Because trying to tackle so many browsers all at once may not always be possible, so let's start with the biggest first of all. So SEO, this thing called Search Engine Optimization, what does it actually mean? Well, basically it means how does the search engine understand your website so it can bring it back in the search results? Why does one website become higher in the search results to another website? What does that website do to make Google more happy to put it up in the rankings? With current browsing habits, we know that most people don't go past page 1 on Google. In fact, most people don't go past the top 3 searches of results in Google. Let's just be very clear, when you look at a search results page, and you can see one now next to me, make sure you're very clear distinguishing what's paid search and what's called organic search. So you can see the ones at the top, and they have little things saying ads next to them. That means companies or organizations are paying for those positions. The ones below it is called organic search, and that's what SEO is all about. So SEO, how does it work? Well, the first thing to stress, it's not one thing. It's several factors that combine to give you your scoring for search engine and to determine where you are in the search results. They're often referred to as on-site SEO and off-site SEO, and we'll explain the two. On-site SEO is things that you're doing to your website that you have control of, things like programming, content, page speed, all the things that you are under your control. Off-site is about other websites referring back to you. It's a third-party view of your website, and that's quite a simplistic way of explaining the difference between on-site and off-site. So what are the issues? What are the most common things that we see on websites when people come to us and say, hey, we want to get ourselves up in the search results, and we scan their websites, and we look at their websites? The most common issues, what are they? Well, the first one, which is always the number one, is duplicate content. Now, search engines do not like duplicate content. So let's imagine a website had 4 pages on there, and 3 of those pages had the same About Us section on the website. The search engine sees that as duplicate content. And to break that down to a really easy way to understand it, if there was 2 websites in the world and they both had identical content on there, and Google was to bring back a web result, how does Google determine which one to bring on top of the other when they've got the same content? Well, they don't, and that's why duplicate content is such a problem, because Google and other search engines can't decide which one to rank above the other. So one thing I'd urge to you is to avoid duplicate content on your website. Keep it unique. Whatever you do, don't copy content from third-party websites and just paste it on your website either. Because again, the search engines and the algorithms they use will know you've done that, and again, you'll be penalized for duplicate content. On the other extreme, we see problems coming with lack of content. When a web page has 10 or 15 words about what it is. Now, if you think about it, there's a bit of a tug of war going on here, because we've got Google on one side, and the only way Google really knows what your web page is about is the content, i.e. the words and some other parts of the page to explain what the page is about. And then you've got the human on the other side of the rope. And humans, over the last 10 years, we've become a lot less involved with text, but more about visual identity and video. We don't read most of the content on websites. And in fact, in one report I read recently, it reckons that 80% of the website content you put on your websites will not be read. But that's fine, we still need that content on there because Google needs to understand. So there's a tug of war going on here, because we want, as humans, fast information. We don't have time to read War and Peace about a web page, but Google has got that time, and its algorithms dependent. So if you've got a page with a few words on it, then you need to create more content around the keywords of that page. You also need to think perhaps you need to push that further down the page so that the human is satisfied at the top of the page with more visual and dynamic content. Another problem we see commonly is images. And there's two things with images. Firstly, one, they're not optimized. Secondly, they're not tagged correctly. So what does optimize mean? Well, when you take a photograph on a modern digital camera or even your iPhone or your Android phone, the file sizes are big. Your cameras now take photos in high definition, in 4K, and they're thousands and thousands of pixels wide, and they have a high dot per inch rate. You don't need that on websites. You need to optimize your images. It can be a lower file size. So for example, if you take a standard photo on, say, an iPhone 10, the picture size is probably going to be roughly about 4 to 5 megabytes. If you were to have 20 images on one page, you can see already that's a huge page. If somebody's downloading that, it's going to take a long time and slow your website down. Now, if you're using websites like WordPress, for example, there's plugins you can install like Smush. And what it'll do, as you upload that big image, it will compress it down to be web safe. If you're not using WordPress and using another platform, there are other options. And if you really have to, and you've got the technology and the know-how, you can use tools such as Photoshop to save your images for web and compress them and make them safe. But we see lots of websites going very slow due to image size, which has an impact on your search engine optimization. The next part is tagging the images. So as you know, Google has a tab at the top for image searches. The only way Google knows what the image is about is if you tag it. So one, the file name should represent what the image is about. And secondly, when you upload the image to your website via whatever CMS you're using, make sure you give the image tag a proper name that Google can understand. So if you had a photograph of a packet of pens, say it's a packet of 12 pens in different colours, rather than pens xy92.jpg. It gives some meaning so that Google and other search engines can understand what the image is about. The next thing that we see a common problem with is what's called meta titles and meta descriptions. If you go to your website now and you right click your page and click view source, you'll see the HTML code that appears on your website. This is what Google is reading, what other search engine reads to understand your website. If you look at the top of the page, there'd be a section in the header section called metadata and meta titles. This again is an explanation of what the page is about. And the meta title is also the text that shows up in the tab when you're looking at your website from the browser perspective. Now, lots of websites have duplicate metadata and meta titles. So the first thing about meta titles, you know, they need to be 50 to 60 characters long, and they need to be unique to every single page. So make sure you've got no duplicate titles, and make sure there's no missing titles either. Make sure there's, you know, more than 45 but below 60 words, so it's got a good understanding of the page. Then look at the one below, it's called metadata, and this again is a description of the page. But again, commonly when we scan websites, we see duplicate content in that area, we see missing data, and we see people going over the maximum amount of limits. The limit there is 160 characters. Now, these limits do change from time to time as Google and other search engines change their algorithm, but 160 is a good understanding. If you are using content management systems such as WordPress, I would encourage you to use plugins like Yoast. Well, it will scan your page for you inside of WordPress, and it gives you a traffic light of amber, green and red to tell you how well the page is ranked and how well you've got your metadata, your meta title, descriptions and page content. The next issue we see commonly is broken links. So you might have a content page and there's some links to other content pages on your website. When you click the links, they don't work, they don't go anywhere. It comes up with a page not known. Technically, that's known as a 404 error, but to humans, it's known as a mistake. It doesn't work. Avoid that. Google will penalize you for having broken links. The next is about your page content, the words the human reads. So make sure you break them into blocks and sections. And what we want to do is any titles you have on the page, we want to put into what's called a header 1 tag. Again, if you're using editors such as WordPress and other modern CMSs, you'll be able to select the tag you want to use when you create the content. If you don't use the header tags, you're going to have a page of content with no hierarchy back to the meta titles at the top. So please start using the header tags. This is exactly what they're designed for, and Google will reward you for doing that. The next is about how fast your website loads, and this is a common problem. I mentioned earlier about the image sizes, but there's other factors that can make your website run slow. For example, if your web server is not a optimized for speed web server, it's not geared up for what you're trying to do. The next thing that would slow a website down is poor quality of code. Is there code that's redundant that doesn't need to be there? It's almost like, if we're taking it non-technical, it's fine-tuning the engine. It's taking the raw engine you get and making it better and more performance-tuned. The faster your website loads, the quicker the visitor can get to the website, but the more Google will like your website. If you'd like to do a test on your own website to see how fast it is, I'd suggest you go into Google and type Google PageSpeed Insights, and it comes up with a little tool, and you put your website address in there and click Analyze, and Google will rank your website in terms of page speed, and it'll give you the page speed both for mobile and for desktop. Have a look now and see where you score. If it's in red or amber, you need to do some improvements. The next is about redirection. So if any of you have recently done a new website project, or you're thinking of doing a website project, one thing you must remember is you've already got history with search engines. It's already existed. If you've got a 5-year-old or 10-year-old website, it's had 5 to 10 years to gain some authority from Google. If it's on page 2 or 3 of the search results, you've still got indexed from Google. And if you want to see how many pages Google has actually indexed on your website, go into your browser and type site, S-I-T-E, / and your website address, and Google will tell you how many pages is indexed on your site. But if you're doing a new website, or you've changed your website recently, don't throw away your history. Make a copy of all the URLs you used to have, and through what's called a 301 redirect, which sounds technical, but all it is a lookup table. Here's the old URL, here's the new URL, and that will help maintain your Google history. Technical name is a 301 redirection, and if you just type that into Google, you'll get lots of advice and information about that. The next thing we see a common problem for is security certificates. So when you look at your browser right now, you should see a little padlock in the top left when you load your website, meaning you're using a security certificate. It's called HTTPS, SSLs. It's basically securing your website. It must be secure in today's standards, not only for GDPR compliance and other security compliance, but to make Google happy and improve your organic search. Then there's this other SEO things we spoke about earlier called Offsite SEO. And what does that mean? Well, that's basically getting links from other websites to your websites. Now, if we go back 10 or so years, everybody thought, oh, this is good. We'll create websites and put thousands of links to our website. But that soon got blacklisted, and it's known in the industry as spam. It's spamming links to your website. You don't want to do that. It's not about quantity of links. It's about quality of links. So how does that work? Well, think about it like this. If you've got a website and it's got some content on there, Google has to understand how authoritative you really are. It doesn't know who you are. It doesn't understand that, so it has to use part of its algorithm to try and determine how authoritative you are. So if you had a link from a very high authoritative ranking website, such as a news website or a high ranking, high traffic, high value website to your website, then Google will look at your website and say, okay, they've got links from these sorts of websites to theirs. They must be a source of good knowledge. They must know what they're doing. They must be authoritative. So we'll move them up the search rankings. If, on the other hand, you've got bad website and low quality website traffic coming from websites below yours, well, that will bring your rankings back down. So many people and many organizations engage in what's called a backlink program, where they will write content for news outlets, for journal websites, for multimedia websites, and ask them to post an article with a link back to their website. Now, sometimes you can get these companies, these organisations that are more authoritative than you to post this for free. Sometimes you have to pay them. But it's called backlinking, and it's about being authoritative with your domain name and your website. Social media engagement is also critical for offsite SEO. Trying to get people to link to you, talk about your website, keep the brand, keep your domain name in the foresight. The more mentions, the more traffic about your domain on social media, the better for your organic search engine rankings. One thing we also see quite a lot is websites where the website doesn't exist anymore and it's got what's called a dead link. So one thing you can do using Google Analytics is find out all the links of old websites that link to you, they're called referrals, and you can contact those old webmasters and ask them to remove the links. Now SEO is not just about one thing today to make your rankings go up. It's about continuous, ongoing work. It doesn't happen overnight. SEO is normally deemed a longer term strategy. It usually takes 6 to 9 months to start seeing a return on your investment. So don't expect things to happen overnight, and stick with your campaigns for the first 6 months because it does take time for Google to start indexing. It's not an instant bang, here's more traffic that you would get if you were using paid advertising such as Google AdWords or social media advertising. It's about a continuous program. One thing that's very important with search engine optimization is content. So think about this, if there was 2 websites in the world both talking about the same subject, and this website here every day was posting on social media, was creating blog articles, and this website wasn't, naturally this website's putting more effort in, so Google would put that higher up in the rankings. I call it very simply, are you bothered? If you're bothered, you're writing new blog content, you're creating new social media posts, you're getting engagement, and you're pushing yourself higher up the rankings. Now, if anybody would like any more advice about search engine optimization and how you can really make it work for you, please feel free to direct message me or contact me here at CDA, and I'll be more than willing to have a look at your website and give you some ideas and about how you can do things. I hope you've enjoyed this cast. Tomorrow we'll be talking about Facebook advertising, and until then, please take care and stay safe. Thank you for listening.